My name's Dan Hay. I'm the executive producer on Far Cry and the creative director on Far Cry 5.
How did visiting Montana impact the gameplay in Far Cry 5?
Going to Montana was a big deal for us. I think we thought we were going there for tone and for narrative and for stories and characters. And in point of fact, what was really interesting about Montana was that it's got a lot of stuff in it. Like, there's a lot of opportunity. We were driving down the road and there was like a World War II plane like in a scrapyard, and you're like, oh, it's amazing, and it looked like it could fly. Or like, it's completely conceivable that there would be these toys sitting around, or something as innocuous as a tractor, and you start to look at it and go, man, if I was in that thing and I didn't want to be taken, that thing could be pretty tough. And what about that thresher that's on the front of it? Could that be a weapon? It's super cool, right? Or even just the idea of knocking down a fence and letting animals escape and letting kind of the anecdote factory. It just looked like a place that with a little bit of pressure could just be batshit crazy.
And speaking of crazy, where do you guys draw inspiration from when it comes to everything from the animals people are going to be dealing with to the actual cult itself?
I think, we do our homework, right? You're asking the question, like, when you went to Montana, what happened and what did you do? We do our homework. When we first started this, I didn't know anything about cults. I just knew that I wanted a magnetic leader who was believable, could convince me to kind of join their cult, but I think we had a really cliche idea of it. And I think that the more we scratched at it, the more we got experts in to talk to us about it, the more believable it came. That you could actually believe that somebody could, I think as a normal person, you think to yourself, there's nobody's gonna be able to talk to me out of my life and into theirs. And it's kind of that you're incredulous about it. And once you start to do a little bit of research, you start to realize just how easy that process is of losing yourself to somebody like the Father. And then I think the second part for us was building a character, because we know we have a pedigree of building characters like Voss or Pagan Min, but building a character that doesn't believe they're the bad guy. That creates a nuance and a subtlety that's really tricky. And so I think the big thing for us was to find the right writing group to be able to do that, and the right actor to be able to portray it. And I needed to believe that this actor was going to be able to convince me. When you watch an actor do something, you ask yourself, do I believe it? Do I believe that they believe it? I needed to believe that they could pull me out of my life and pull me into their mandate. I watched his stuff for about a minute and a half, and it was a yes.
One thing that is an interesting little nuance when you're driving around in any of the vehicles, you hear all this Christian music. You talk about that element.
I think, what we did with the Father in terms of building our world is that we wanted to make a place where it felt familiar and it felt real and interesting, but we also wanted it to be our Montana. So we built our own cult. We built sort of the things that they believe they're snacking and taking from different religions, they're taking from different ethos, and they're applying it to their own, so it becomes ours. And I think that there's just something haunting about driving through the world and hearing this eerie music and hearing Faith on the radio, right? And then maybe even meeting some of these characters or hearing what John's doing. It creates this lore, it creates this gossip. And I think that's what's interesting about trying to marry a unique story into an open world, is that for the first time for us, we really thought about the characters not having all the information, and it was like broken telephone. So this stuff, everything goes south, and then you meet somebody and they don't have all the info. They have the info for just what they can see. And you've got to go around and meet people and get intel. And maybe somebody's going to tell you about Boomer, and you go up and you get Boomer, and now you've got a dog with you, and you feel a little bit stronger because Boomer's got the ability to run out in the world, and basically he's almost like a biological drone, right? You can send him out, he has the ability to tag everybody, and that can help you change how you want to play. Or maybe you want to go get somebody with an RPG or something like that and have them as a guns for hire. It completely changes how you play the game. And I think that it's been really interesting for us to balance all of those different types of things that you can do in gameplay with this story in a world where the narrative is organic. It's tricky.
And a lot of what we just talked about is very serious in tone, but you also have the Testicle Festival.
I think, it's interesting when people sort of get a chance to pick up the controller and understand that we wanted to have a story that was unique, that it had elements of seriousness to it, that it was earnest, that we had characters that really believed in what they were doing, and that they were interesting characters set in a place where you could push back, you could imbibe in the story if you wanted to, or if you just wanted to go out and have a classic Far Cry experience, you could. But I think the single most important thing that we did is each region has its own tone. And I think the more you pick up the game And the more you play it, you realize just how different they are. One is ethereal, one is a classic Far Cry experience, another one is very much more kitschy and Americana. And you get the different elements of their personalities, you get different stories, and then on top of that, we put all the guns for hire and all the civilians that live in the world, and each one of those has their own little action bubble story as well. So we try and build a world where you can go out into it, you can go in any direction, you can meet anybody, and for the first time, we don't really know what's gonna happen, which is tricky because somebody will turn to us and go, okay, what do I do next? And it's like, I don't know, do what you want. And the game has to respond to that, and that's super cool.